Okay, so we're holding towards the end of Perek Yud, chapter 10, in Kohelet. אם כהה הברזל והוא לא פנים קלקל, בחיילים יגבר ויתרון אנשי חוכמה. A very difficult pasuk to understand if you just translate it literally. It basically says like this: if the metal on the knife, the metal on the sword, if the metal is keha, keha means it's opaque, I think they say in English. In other words, it's not sharp. Right? You take a knife, it's just missing the sharpness.
It's dull.
It's dull, that's the better word, yeah. If it's dull, that's what the word keha means. V'hu lo panim kilkal. In other words, it did not have that shine that it would ordinarily have when it's brand new, when it's sharp. Nonetheless, v'hayalim yegaber, even such a knife, such a sword, can overcome many, many soldiers. V'yitron achsher chokhmah. And there is a big advantage to being prepared with wisdom. The connection over here is something that he has said before, that it's not always the strength of the military or the weaponry, it's not in the ammunition, it's much more in the strategy. And it's not even in the numbers of people, in the numbers of soldiers one may have. In wanting to win a war, a battle, the greater advantage will have those that have chokhmah, those that have the strategy. They may be able to win even if they're outnumbered, even if the other side, the enemy, has more power. Because as we can see, with a knife, with a sword, that may not have the sharpness of it, may not be as effective. Nevertheless, it will be effective. It can be. It can overcome many, many soldiers. What's required, of course, is motivation, courage, and strategy, chokhmah. That can do it too. A weak weapon, or almost no weapons at all. The reason why he points this out is because of what we said in the past, that the advantage of chokhmah is greater than anything else. Wisdom is more important than anything else, because if a person is wise, if he's learned, he's able to deal with problems better. He realizes, well, why should I pick a fight over here? This is so ridiculous. I'm going to lose out more than I'm going to gain. But who thinks like that? Somebody who is a chacham. Chokhmah allows one to really evaluate every situation much differently than one who thinks, well, I have the money, or I have the strength, I can do it. I'm going to take it to court. I have the best lawyer. Yeah, people think like that all the time. Many people fight just because they want to win, but they end up winning. They end up losing too. If you win, you lose, because what did you gain by winning? And this happens at home too. Some men think they're so macho. They're going to teach their wife a lesson. They're going to win. They're not going to give in. Yeah. If you win the fight with your wife, you lost. You know why? Why, if you win the fight, did you lose? Because you just lost a friend. You just lost a devoted wife. You've just made a scar, maybe even a permanent scar in the relationship by winning. So did it pay to win? So it's not winning that's important here, it's chokhmah. And if you use chokhmah properly, yes, you will win in the way you're supposed to win. Not with the power, not with the koach, not with the money, not with any other artificial means. So even though, yes, there are ways to win with a knife that is dull, but you know what the idea behind that is? Think about it. It doesn't cut. It's impressive. It can do the job. In the same way that knife can do the job effectively, the more so chokhmah, especially as he says, the chokhmah, the wisdom that is done with with hachsher, with preparation. Because chokhmah does require preparation. One doesn't just become wise and a chacham. It requires time, it requires experience. And depending on what area of chokhmah we're talking about. There are certain rabbis, for example, who specialize in certain areas. Right? They need to prepare themselves in that area. They need to not just have learned like everybody else learns, they need to prepare or specialize in that area that they're dealing with. Specialization is important in order to know something well. But then there is another type of preparation for chokhmah, that's called midot, character refinement. All the chokhmah that one may have will not help him if he has a problem, a real difficult problem. He's a temperamental person, he's lazy. Then the chokhmah will not really help him that much. He will not be able to accomplish as much as he would had he worked on his midot. And we've spoken a lot about that in Mishlei and in Kohelet earlier, how strength, the true strength is only come about when a person controls himself, when he's able to have a full control over his Yetzer Hara. Otherwise, he's not a strong man. He can be muscular, but he's not strong. Strength, as the rabbis tell us, is a koveshet yitzro. That's strength. And the reason why that's strength we will be learning today is because that liberates man. When man is able to control his Yetzer, he's a true free man. Whereas the one who's not in control of his Yetzer is completely an eved, a slave of his habits, of his addictions, of whatever Yetzer he may have. He's not a truly free man. So that is the emphasis over here in the words v'yitron achshel chokhmah, that there's an advantage, a yitaron, on preparing oneself with chokhmah over any other powers. In the same way that the dull knife was able to be effective, even though it was dull, the more so chokhmah, which is chokhmah, which always has an advantage over any weaponry, can definitely defeat the enemy, can definitely win the battle. Many, many times in Kohelet and Mishlei, Shlomo Melech emphasized the importance of chokhmah. The rabbis, of course, did not only want us to be a learned people so that we know how to fulfill the Torah mitzvot, that's also part of it, but chokhmah is also intended for us to be able to contend with all kinds of issues and problems that come about, which we'll talk about later. All kinds of things that politicians have to deal with, presidents, governors, prime ministers, and if they don't have the chokhmah, they will make mistakes. You know what the worst thing is? People who think they have chokhmah and they don't have any. That's even worse. They think they're smart. So anyway, chokhmah is a big plus. The more one knows, the better he's prepared. And the greatest enemy of the Jew has always been ignorance. Because if a Jew is ignorant, then he also loses his sense of pride of who he is. What does it mean to be Jewish? Why should he work so hard? So chokhmah is therefore extremely important for many reasons. All right, the next pasuk says something completely different. Here he's going sometimes from topic to topic. There's sometimes the pasukim are related. Sometimes, all of a sudden, out of the blue, he speaks about something completely different. So the next pasuk says as follows: Im yeshocha nachash belo lachash, ve'en yitron lebal halashon. If a snake bites without a lachash, one way of understanding the word lachash is without rattling. You know a rattlesnake? It rattles before it bites, before it attacks, because he is warning you. He's letting you know, don't get too close. So the lachash could be either sticking out its tongue, or making it, because not all snakes have a rattler, or doing something to remind you or to warn you, hey, I'm here, be careful. So if a snake bites without a lachash, what does that mean? That it has bitten someone without warning, right? That's one interpretation of these words. Just as, or if, a snake bites or can bite without a lahash. Ve'en yitron leba'al lashon. A person who's a ba'al lashon, a person who speaks lashon hara, who gossips and tattletales, in many ways he's compared. In other words, there's no difference between him and the nahash that bites. Lashon hara is a terrible sin, a terrible, terrible sin, very difficult to repair and to do teshuvah, to take back all the words that were said, the nasty words, all the terrible things that, or the consequences that came out as a result of speaking negatively about someone, or as they call it, assassinating his reputation. So that's some of the ideas that are being expressed in this pasuk have to do, obviously, with lashon hara. But he compares the to a nahash for more than one reason. But one reason is because it could be sudden, without warning, and a lashon hara does not require too much preparation. A person can utter something without thinking about it, and it bites. It can bite right away. So that is one comparison between the two. Another idea that is being expressed here is that in the same way that a nahash, a snake, has no benefit from biting, it's not a lion. A lion, when it bites, it eats. That's why it's biting. A snake, when it bites, has no hana'ah. The rabbis tell us when they bite and they insert those that are poisonous, they're poison, they don't enjoy it.
They don't?
No, they don't enjoy it.
Killing prey.
What is that?
Killing prey. They also kill prey. They
Well,
bite it.
obviously, if that's the purpose, that's different. If the purpose is to eat, then of course they want to cripple, or they want to strangulate, or whatever it is. Sure, that applies to all animals alike. But when a snake bites just for the sake of biting, especially a human being, it's not going to eat you, right? Unless it's one of those big anacondas, right? So that bite is for no ta'ava, the rabbis tell us. The commentators explain there's no desire, there's no hana'ah, there's no enjoyment, pleasure from that. In the same way that therefore the serpent, the snake, has no enjoyment of its bite, so does the lashon hara, the ba'al lashon hara, the one who speaks lashon hara, really does not gain anything by saying. He doesn't, it's even though he may be happy to have said something, there's no real enjoyment, there's no real good that comes out of it. If anything, a lot of bad comes out of it, but nothing good. However, the rabbis say something very fascinating about this pasuk. I don't remember the exact language, but it's something like this. En hanachash noshech, or mekish, as we say today in Hebrew, a snake does not bite, unless elam ken machrizim alav milemala. Unless Mashamayim, they said, go and bite him. Animals have instincts, they don't have free will. Animal is therefore a shaliach, a messenger to carry out Hashem's will. If someone is attacked by an animal, unless of course you start up with it, if you don't start up with an animal, you don't step on it, you don't bother him. An animal usually will not tend to attack a human being. The Torah says so in the very beginning of Parshat Bereshit, a human being is created in the image of God, and as long as he retains that image of God in his behavior, an animal recognizes that and leaves him alone. Many people who have done research on sharks still are not for sure, they're not 100% certain why sharks attack. What's so strange about a shark attacking is because once they bite, they let go. Very few times have people been consumed entirely by a shark. Most bites, however, of a big shark are fatal. Why? Or many bites are fatal because if enough blood is lost, even a small bite can be fatal. So what happens is a shark only bites once and lets go. Why did it bite once and let go? Because it figured out after the first bite, oh, this is not what I'm used to eating. This is not part of my diet. So they're saying the sharks think that when they see a human being, especially a scuba diver in black gear, oh, this is just another sea lion. Their favorite meal, a seal, a sea lion, or a big fish. But once they take their bite and they're not so smart, right, they realize their mistake. But according to our tradition, an animal usually desists. In other words, he doesn't get involved with a human being. A lion, you should know, if he's not hungry, he won't bother you, but don't get close anyway. I don't recommend it, right? You don't know if he's hungry. Maybe he's in the mood, right? But a tiger is a much more aggressive animal. A tiger may attack even if he's not hungry. So you don't want to mess with tigers. A mountain lion is a little bit more shy, stays away. And the same is true with a jaguar, if you know what a jaguar is. It's most of Latin America, South America, and Central America, there's an animal that resembles the leopard. As you know, in Asia and in Africa, they have leopards. In South America, sometimes they have jaguars. Leopards are more similar to tigers in their aggressiveness. They can attack, but jaguars are just, you don't mess with them, they won't mess with you, even though they can be even more dangerous. Different habits in different animals. Nonetheless, if they do attack, it's min hashamayim. That's very important to keep in mind. Usually, for the most part, an animal that attacks min hashamayim, they told him to. People who have been bitten by a snake, unless of course they were handling it or something, maybe, right? Unless they sat on it, they stepped on it, maybe. Otherwise, if they're just minding their own business and the snake comes, as they do in all over the world, especially with their snakes, especially in the summer when they come out, people get it. It's all min hashamayim. And our tradition says that one of the punishments of one who speaks lashon hara is to get bitten by a snake. So actually, there is a connection here between lashon hara and being bitten by a snake, because one of the punishments for lashon hara is to be bitten by a snake. There are other reasons why people will be bitten by snakes, quite a few reasons, but this is definitely one of them. But I thought the point here was very, very interesting, because people don't realize that dogs or cats or rats or anything that may bite, min hashamayim, they're telling them to bite. It's not just a coincidence. It's not because they feel like it. It's not because they're necessarily afraid of you. They're going to bite. There are many, many stories of big tzaddikim who approached wild, dangerous dogs, and the dogs calmed down all of a sudden. But they would not calm down just in front of anyone. Yes? Aaron.
I remember a year ago, maybe more, you just said,
Right.
maybe cancer is cancer.
No, yeah, but it's very difficult for us to know. We don't have, unfortunately, today we don't have prophets, right? If we had prophets, they would tell us this is for this is for that, this is for that. There were great rabbis and Kabbalists who had Ruach HaKodesh and who were also able to tell certain things according to the Kabbalah. People, obviously, who are suffering from the kidneys, from the liver, from the pancreas, from the gallbladder, from arthritis. I agree with you, what you're saying. Everything has a reason. But do we know the exact reason for all of them? No. It's difficult to know for sure what it is, because even with cancer, there's different kinds of cancers. Yeah. But we do know that it's all min hashamayim. Unless, of course, the person smokes. Then he's doing it to himself. He can't say, oh, it's min hashamayim. You did it to yourself. Whether it was alcohol or smoking, a person sometimes brings about his own illness, and sometimes his early death. Min hashamayim, he was supposed to live to 83, according to his Mazal. Right? But he committed a slow suicide by not taking care of his body. A lot of people have this problem. Then they say, oh, it's in my genes. No, it's not in your genes. That's called babamaises in Yiddish. Fairy tales. Or in Arabic, kalam fadi. Hawa. Plain, air. Nothing to do with reality. People have to be responsible for themselves. But there are times that things happen min hashamayim. And an attack by an animal that's unprovoked is one of them. Yes?
Is that rule apply to human beings too? When human beings bite the other, not biting, like hurting others.
No, human
That's
beings
part
have
of-
free will. Human being has free will. So that's why you have to be careful with human beings. Because they have free will. They can decide on their own to hurt. However, if the other person does not deserve it at all, then Me'ashamayim, they will intercede and stop it. But if that person is not such a big righteous person, he may suffer. You don't want to take a chance. You don't want to be involved in a fight. Sometimes you have no choice because you're a soldier, so you go to war. War is, there's no compassion in war. There's missiles, there's mines, there's bullets. What can you do? If you're a soldier, you're a soldier. Otherwise, you don't want to get involved with another human being because even though it's not directed from above, right? It's still, things can happen.
Excuse me.
Yes?
If all animals do whatever that Hashem says, then snake, when he said to Chava that eat that apple.
Okay, the snake, the story with the snake in Chava is a whole different kind of story. That's not just a story. The story of Chet Adam Arishon, the sin involving the snake, is just a lesson for humanity at the beginning of creation. There will be a force out there that will tempt you at all times against my wishes and my will. He's called the Nachash, he's also called the Yetzirah, he's called the Satan, and he eventually is called the Malach HaMavet too, when he takes a person from this world. It's that same individual, it's that same koach. So that story is just a lesson that we need to learn, which appears at the beginning of creation, which explains why people can be rebellious and animals not. Even though animals can be rebellious, but that's because of instinct. A human being has free will to the extent that he can rebel against God. Even though he knows the truth, it has happened, unfortunately, because of temptations. Money. Money is a big temptation, You tell somebody, I'll give you $1 million if you do this on Shabbat, something which is prohibited. He may do it for $1 million. Temptation. Policeman stops you and wants to give you a ticket. Well, if you're in Mexico, 10 pesos is enough. Here, the policeman won't take a $100 bill. He might put you in jail for trying to bribe him. But what if you offer the policeman $5,000? You think he might not think twice about it? A human being can be bribed. He can be tempted. It all depends on how strong it is. So in some places you don't have to tempt too much. In some places you have to tempt more. That's all it is. The Torah says so. Right? The bribery blinds people, even the chachamim, because that's what bribery is all about, to tempt you. And if a person falls, that's it. We're only human. So that's why that story of the Nahash is an important lesson. The people should be very, very careful. They can easily fall. All right, the next pasuk. Divrei pi chacham hen v'siftot kesil tevale'eno. When a chacham speaks, if he's a true chacham, his words will find hen, will find grace. People may actually enjoy it. It can make a difference in their life. They will receive it well. That's called hen. The problem, however, is if after the chacham has spoken, Iksil gets involved. The next couple of Pesukim will be talking a lot about Iksil. Now let me explain to you what Iksil is, because you may have a different understanding of it from learning about it in the past. If we translate Iksil, we can translate it as a fool. Yeah. But there's a lot of words in English and in Hebrew and in Arabic and even in Farsi that are synonymous, but they're not exactly the same. You know what I mean by synonyms? Mm-hmm. Right? Give you an example, just for an example. I don't remember all of them in Farsi, but I remember in Arabic. In Arabic, for a friend, you have sahab, you have rafiq, you have sadiq, habib, exactly. Yeah. You have various words that describe different levels of friendships. And in Hebrew too, haver, re'a, amit, yedid, right? All kinds of words. Even though they are similar, there are different levels of friendships. When it comes to foolishness, you will hear in Hebrew today tipesh. if you learn the Tanakh, which uses words of Lashon HaKodesh, biblical Hebrew, you will come across more the term Kesil or Sachal, which is almost the same thing. What is that? Shote also, you're right, yeah. All kinds of words, I can't remember all of them right now, that mean something similar. One who's not smart, one who's not a Chacham. But there's differences, because one is as a result of ignorance. He's simply an amaretz, the rabbis call him. He doesn't really know anything. He's not a fool, but he's ignorant. Right? Jahil. Right? In Arabic and in Farsi too. Yeah? Ignorance. And then you have one who's not ignorant. He's a letz. He mocks. He makes fun. He's not a serious person. You have another individual who's really bad, who really wants to put people down, who doesn't care. You have all kinds of people. When we talk about now Iksil, have in mind somebody who's not serious, somebody who doesn't want to learn, somebody that thinks he's smart, but he's not. All right? That kind of a person. Not necessarily a fool that he doesn't have brains. Okay? That's what we should have in mind here. So in this pasuk, he's telling us that a chacham, when he speaks, there's chen. The words make sense. The words are very well received. And they may make a difference.
What does chen mean?
Chen means grace. Was a man or a woman, sometimes they have chen. Sympathy, grace. Not beauty, but chen, grace. That's the English translation of chen. And that's what Shlomo Melech tells us in Eshet Hayil, Sheker chen vehevel hayofi. When you look at a woman, be careful not to go by her chen, in how she presents herself, or by her physical beauty, because the chen is sheker, it could be misleading you. And the yofi is hevel. It doesn't mean that much, because when she's over 65, she has a few more wrinkles. So the yofi will go away, right? Ishayrat Hashem, a woman of valor, a woman who Eshet Hayil, a woman who fears God. Hititala, that's the one you should praise. That's the one you should look for. So anyway, so that's chen. That's where chen appears there. There are people that are good communicators. They know how to speak very well. They have oratory skills, they say. These people do not necessarily have chen. And therefore people hear, wow, very nice speech. But the man was not nice, not interesting, not appealing. He has no chen. Follow me? Then there are people who are not the best speakers, but they have so much chen and so much warmth. And they're more likable. See what I mean? Then if you have also chokhmah and chen together, wow, that's even better. Right? So what he tells us over here is that a chacham, through his chen, can be very convincing. People can receive well his words. And those words can mean a lot to them. The problem is that if you have a fool or exil or somebody who's not a chacham, who's going to have a conversation with these individuals who've just heard the chacham, siftot ksil tevale'eno, the lips of the ksil will swallow or will cancel out the words of the chacham. That's one explanation. In other words, be careful with who you speak. Be careful with who you befriend, because it could be that everything that you've learned, all the good things that you've heard, will be cooled off, will not have the same impression on you after you've heard the words of exil, of a person who's not so serious and who's not so chacham. All he needs to say is, what's the big deal? Even words like that. This is not serious. This is primitive. This is for 1,000 years ago. If he says something about the Torah, and there are people who talk like that. If that happens, some people are not strong enough to resist. After all, this exil happens to be his friend. So the words of exil can ruin the words of the Chacham who were said with Chen. The simpler interpretation is that even though the words of a Chacham bring out Chen and are accepted well, the words of the Eksil Tevale'eno, they will make him fall. And what that means is that it will affect Eksil himself. Because he's such a big talker, and because he talks nonsense or foolish things, that will bring about his downfall. He will only listen to himself and not listen to the Chacham. So Eksil will lose out because of what he says and constantly says and convinces himself of his nonsense. He will lose out. Whereas if he were to listen to a Chacham, he would gain so much. All right. Next pasuk. Tchilat divrei pihu sichlut. We'll continue on with Eksil. The beginning of the words of Eksil, Tchilat divrei pihu sichlut. It's all nonsense. It's all foolishness. But Shlomo Melech tells us, don't think it only stops with words. These people who are very, very talkative, who are always saying things, it doesn't just end with talk. V'acharit pihu holelut ra'ah. What happens after, the consequences of all this talking, is holelut ra'ah. Is a very bad disposition, a very bad behavior, holelut ra'ah is a wild lifestyle, a lifestyle that is reckless, that is not responsible. So people who believe in themselves, believe their words, people who are not chachamim, in the end, all that talk leads them to holelut ra'ah. And that's, of course, as a result of now willing to listen to what others have to say, those who are more experienced, those who are more chachamim. And unfortunately, this is a problem in many, many communities, many, many places where there are individuals who can avail themselves of classes, of lectures, of chachamim, and seek their advice, but they don't. They convince themselves that they know better, and from all that talk to themselves, eventually comes out holelut ra'ah. It was a bad lifestyle, in a lifestyle that is devoid of any meaning. Anyway, what have we seen so far from these few pesukim about Kesil and speech? He's really emphasized to us how important speech is. Whether it's in Lashon Hara, being careful with what we say about other people, or whether it's things that we say in general. In Judaism, there's a big emphasis on being very, very careful with the quality of speech, not just Lashon Hara, quality of speech, not to use bad language. Every second word in the news or in the street is bad language these days. The non-Jewish world has gotten so used to speaking in a derogatory way that if it's not a curse word, it's something else not too nice, not too modest. If you know what I mean, that's what you hear.
Yeah.
And I've heard this in English much more. I've heard, in Arabic they definitely know how to curse. Yeah. But in the Latin American countries, I don't hear it so much. Even though there are slang, very bad slang too in Spanish, but in a regular conversation, you may not hear it as bad as you hear it in English. I don't know why. But it wasn't like this in the 70s. It became worse and worse and worse. Whether it's in the newspaper, they say things they would never have said before. So speech, it's all about speech. Speech is something very precious to us. It's the one ability that we have as human beings that animals don't have. And that is where the Torah is very, very strict about a word is a word. You made a promise, it's a promise. You made a neder, you better keep it. Why? Because it's a word. Words are powerful. Words are powerful. They can do a lot of harm, they can do a lot of good. Imagine giving encouragement, imagine making somebody feel good. Going to be menachem avelim, when you're going to go comfort those who are in mourning, are you going to just sit and do nothing? Even though you're not supposed to begin to speak, according to the halakha. Part of the nichum avelim involves speech, involves saying something. So speech in our tradition is very, very important. And here he's basically saying, look what comes out of the speech of the fool, what can come out of the speech of the Chacham. Be very careful, especially in the area of Lashon Hara. That could be very, very damaging. All right, next pasuk. Ve'asachal, which is like exil, the fool, yerbet dvarim, lo yeda adam ma sheyeh v'sheyeh me'acharav mi yagid lo. Look at this fool. A fool, if that's what we're going to call him, has no interest in being told what to do. And if you warn him, hey, things are going to be very, very bad for you. You're deteriorating day by day. What's going to happen to you in the future is that you're going to land in jail, or you're going to be in the hospital, or you're going to be in a home, right? What is he going to say? Asachal yarbet dvarim. He's just going to say, talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. Lo yeda adam ma sheyeh. One way of explaining this pasuk means that he will always excuse himself. How could you tell me what's going to happen in the future? Nobody knows the future. See, lo yeda adam ma sheyeh v'sheyeh me'acharav mi yagid lo. Who can know what's going to happen tomorrow, the next day? He's right. Nobody could know. The problem is that we're talking about experts. Experts do know. Experts have experience, right? They're telling you, this is what has happened to so-and-so who's done what you're doing. He took drugs, and he eventually ended up hurting himself, ruining his life, ruining his career. You don't know what the future is. It's okay. It's all right. I'm okay. I'm calm. Nothing is wrong. So the Ksil, the one who's not a Chacham, he obviously is acting without too much wisdom, right? He's not wise. So one of the things that characterizes these people is that because of the lack of Chokhmah, they don't just keep quiet. They actually talk a lot, and they will tell you all kinds of stories, including, what do you know about the future? That's not right. Who's to say? And they will completely ignore the problem that they have. So this is quite typical for a Sachal to try to justify or to excuse himself by just talking a lot and saying that he doesn't see this to be a problem. Now, Shlomo Melech, as you know, was saying a lot of this Baruch HaKodesh. I mean, he was divinely inspired. And the commentaries tell us that he saw, unfortunately, the coming of the Khurban, the destruction of the temple. He's building the first temple. And he already sees what's going to happen in the future, that it's going to be destroyed, there's going to be a second one. And what is he thinking? He said, what a shame. There will be prophets. And the prophets will tell the Jewish people, they'll tell them off many, many times. That's what a prophet did. A prophet was not just about the future. It was a very special individual who rebuked, reprimanded, told off the people, you're wrong. Look what you're doing to yourself. Look at the problems you have now because of your behavior. And guess what the Jews said? You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, there's going to be destruction? Not be Tom. Whoever said something like that. We're fine. Everything is okay. Everybody loves us, even the Arabs. Yeah, I mean, back then, there's no problems. Why should they think of the worst? And even if you have a problem, who's to say you're right? Maybe it's because of some other problem. This is only because of a lack of Torah, lack of Chokhmah, that people have developed this attitude of ignoring those who are wise, those that do have the Chokhmah, and they do have the experience. What a shame. See, if somebody is ignorant, he just didn't learn, but he has an open mind, all right. He has an open mind, come and listen. He has an open mind. He's willing to accept. There are some people that do not have an open mind, either because they're stubborn or because they're fools. They don't have Chokhmah, and because of the lack of Chokhmah, they don't even have the tools to realize that what is being told to them is for their good, for their benefit. It's wise words. They don't even realize it. So look how much a person loses out by not learning. It's almost like coming to a foreign country and not knowing the language. They're talking to you. They have to do it in sign language. That's all you can do. And the chaval, before you go on a trip to a foreign land, it would help to at least brush up a little bit on basic phrases and sentences in the language so you can communicate and ask for the basic things you need. So if people had a basic foundation of Torah, it would help them so much to understand all kinds of topics, all kinds of things in Judaism that unfortunately not everybody knows because they never learned, never bothered to learn. Take somebody who grew up in a village in Baluchistan. You know what that is? Yeah, Baluchistan, yeah. In a very remote part in the southeast part of Iran, right? The border of Pakistan. Not too much Jewish community there. And not even a big city, in a small city, in a village. All he knows is how to work the land maybe. How to grow things. That's all he knows. That's his living, his livelihood. He doesn't know anything else about Torah, about Chokhmah, about the world. It doesn't even interest him. He wants to make sure his cows are healthy, his animals are healthy. He has sheep, right? That's all his interests are all about. But the Jewish nation was never just about work, and just about survival. It was about knowing the Torah, learning the Torah. This is our livelihood. You cannot function properly in this world, in this life, without having the basic information, the basic ideas of what the Torah wants to tell us. Imagine somebody who has a problem. He's stingy. Okay, let's say he's stingy. He doesn't learn Torah, any form of Torah. He just knows how to read and pray. He knows that. Why should he try to work on his stinginess? Because people have told him, you're so stingy? Just because of that remark or criticism, you think that's enough for him to change? Nah. He might say, you don't like it, go somewhere. Do that. That's the way I am. Some people talk like that. That's the way I am. You like it? Fine. If not, leave it. Take it or leave it, in other words. Or take me or accept me the way I am. What is motivating him to change? Why should he be any different than he is? He has a tendency to be cheap. Unless he goes to a school or a psychologist or a chacham or learns Torah, there's no reason why he should make any changes in his lifestyle. When a person learns Torah, he realizes how much he loses by being the way he is. That is why we're seeing here a lot the word kesil sachal. Their attitude is so different. The way they'll deal with the issues is so different that you can't really expect them to change their way of being if they're not going to ever learn Torah. They're not motivated to do so. They think you're crazy. They're the smart ones and you're the crazy one. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, the Nevi'im, the prophets, did warn. They did warn us about the Churban Beit HaMikdash. It's coming. What are you talking about? It's not going to be. It's never going to happen. It happened. So you have this, what he's talking about, you have this in our history of the wise telling those who were not so learned, those who were not interested, listen, we're telling you, this is a fact. Change your ways. Thank you. Now, this is also a problem today in Israel and elsewhere, where you have individuals who are intelligent, experienced, learned, who are warning about a situation. What are you doing? Whether it's uprooting communities from Gush Katif, as an example, right? Oh, this will solve our problems. This will not solve our problems. This will make things worse. Without Torah, without the guidance of Chachamim, it's very difficult for these people to know if what they're about to do is the right thing to do. They're guessing. Should we leave Iran alone? They're not going to develop nuclear weapon. After all, they said they're not. But there's something called lying. Some people lie. And they're very good at that, right?
Right. Especially American.
Especially since we have experience from a previous liar. His name was Hitler.
Yeah.
And guess what? People believed him. He says, oh no, I'm not going to do anything like that. Remember who that was who believed him?
Neville Chamberlain.
Chamberlain, yeah. He came with a piece of paper. See his signature. Yeah. What is it worth? So you have similar situations all the time where people do not believe those who are chachamim or what the Torah has to say. They don't take warning seriously. And then they find themselves in trouble. Okay, next pasuk. Amal הכסילים תייגענו אשר לא ידע ללכת אל עיר. Amal with an ayin means the hard labor, hard work. What people invest a lot of effort into something that's called amal. The effort invested by the exilim, by the fools, tiyag'eno, it really occupies him so much. All the shtuyot, all the nonsense, all the things that he does that interests him, it's all amal. All that amal, tiyag'eno, it absorbs him so much. And because it absorbs him so much, or takes his time, so the simple meaning is he doesn't even know how to go home. He doesn't even know how to go to the city. He doesn't even know the directions. He loses himself completely in life. Because he's so involved in trivialities, let's call them trivialities, the latest gadget, vacations. He's not a fool, complete the fool, but he is acting like a fool. That's why we're calling him a fool, because these people act like fools. They don't care about being chachamim. They don't care about learning chokhmah. So these ksilim, because of all the amal that they invest their time in and effort, they lose track of time. They lose the sense of direction. They don't even know how to go home. That's the simple, literal meaning of the words. But another idea behind these words is that when we're saying that he does not even know how to, when he does not go to the city, we're talking about the reason for him being that way is because he had not gone to the city, meaning to the classes, to the Bet Midrash of the Chachamim who are in the city. That's just another explanation. Had he gone to the city, had he been present in classes in Shiurim, he would have done things differently. But all that amal of his has kept him from that too, in a sense. He's been so busy with all the shtuyot that he doesn't have time for anything else. You know where this could happen? This could easily happen to any one of us. There's something that needs repair. Okay? Something in the house that needs repair. You say, well, why should I call a plumber and spend $65? I can do it myself. You're not a plumber, however, and you don't really have all the tools, so it's going to take you 4 hours what he would take him 15 minutes. And you might even break. It's even worse. In those 4 hours, you could have done something more productive. Was it worth your time? Was it worth all the effort? Amal, therefore, is an effort that people make in all kinds of things that are not necessarily that important. And it's a shame because if people don't give certain things priorities, they will never end up doing them. Because there's so many things that will preoccupy them. There are bills to pay. I'm sure anybody who owns a home knows that he just had to pay his real estate property tax due by December 10. Then you have your car insurance. Then you have medical insurance. Then you have, these are just bills, right? Then you have errands, shopping. You have weddings, bar mitzvah, brit milah. No, these are Baruch Hashem good, but they take time, right? And then there's work, and then there's sleep. When is a person going to learn? All of this I call amal too, because it's amal. It's hard work. You have to go. You know what it is to travel to a hotel. Well, it depends where you live. If you have to go 25 minutes or 30 minutes to a hotel to be at the wedding, especially a Persian wedding, they start at 12 o'clock midnight, so you can't go to work the next morning. It takes your time. It's going to take. Is that our priority? Oh, are you going to really be there from the beginning to the end? What for? Is that what life is all about? Parties? You come, you say Mazal Tov, you eat something, and you go. Unless it's a family member that you have to be there more hours. Why waste it? It's not just a waste of time, it's amal. All of this takes effort. And the effort, instead of putting it there, should have been put into something else. You could have visited somebody who was sick. You could have gone to a class. You could have done something more productive. So that's because of all this amal. People do not know right from left. They won't even know how to get home. In other words, they lose a sense of direction in life. They don't know what's important and what's not because of all this amal. So the ksilim, the fools who are not learned, therefore, lo mistadrim b'chaim, as we say in Hebrew, they don't know how to get along in life. They don't do things right. Now, this is not just for ordinary people. What he's talking about is also about politicians. All the politicians who are detached, minutakim from Torah, any time that there will be a complex problem, they will not be able to resolve it properly. Complex issues, all kinds of issues. What do we do? Because they're detached from Torah, it's not possible for them to really have a proper guidance vehicle that will for sure tell them, you will be successful if you follow. How do they know? I mean, it's a trial. Many times it's trial and error. You try something, it doesn't work, it does work. They don't know, or they're not confident. And the problem is when you have Republicans and Democrats, it's even worse because you have two opposing factions who have interests of their own, agendas of their own. What does an agenda have to do with the good of the people? But that's where things get mixed up. When they're not focused on the right thing to do, on the best thing for the people, they're focused more on what's better for them. So politicians who are detached from Torah, in other words, who are detached from the emet, from the truth, they will have a very difficult time succeeding in resolving complex problems. All right, the last few pesukim are very interesting. Amal, we said that. Ilach eretz shemalkech na'ar v'sarayich baboker yochelu. Woe to you, a country, who your king or president is a child. In other words, he's not mature. V'sarayich, and that your ministers, first thing they do in the morning is they have breakfast. That's what he says. V'sarayich baboker yochelu. Well, what's wrong with that? What is he talking about? He's talking about people who are not as interested in doing what's good for the people. They are first eager to take care and satisfy themselves. So here he describes it as eating breakfast first thing in the morning. What do? We go to pray first thing in the morning. We're not allowed to eat before we pray. You're allowed to have a drink if you need to. But we don't eat before we pray. First thing we do is we pray. So woe to a country, to a nation whose kings are not mature, who act like a child. And its ministers eat breakfast in the morning, first thing in the morning. In other words, chaval. What does it say? That these people, these ministers, these governors are more interested in the pleasures of life, more interested in themselves than in what needs to be accomplished. These ministers, therefore, and these governors will end up ruining the country. Instead of helping it, they will end up ruining it. Who's better off? The next pasuk. Ashrech eres shemalkech ben chorim v'sarayich be'et yochelu b'gvura v'lo bashti. Fortunate are you, a nation whose king is a ben chorim. What's ben chorim? A free man. Remember we started saying before, who's a free man? One who is not a slave of his pleasures, of his desires. He's not addicted to some sort of pleasure. He's a ben chorim. He's stronger than his yetzer hara. Fortunately, if you have a king like that, a president who's not a slave of his ta'avot, of his desires, v'sarayich ba'et yochelu, and your ministers will eat at the right time, and they will do so bigvura, with strength of conviction, or with strength meaning overpowering the yetzer hara, and they will not act v'lo basheti, they will not be drunk. You know how many people, how many governors, presidents, senators drink, especially in Europe, in Russia, in Poland, in Armenia, in these countries where they drink a lot of vodka. They're drunk. You see them, they're drunk. You can see their faces are red. Yeah, a lot of people drink. Maybe they have a problem with at home. Who knows why they're drinking? I don't know why they're drinking. Well, in the cold countries, it's cold. So, but anyway, but look what he says over here. Responsible people who are not drunk, who are not addicted to some drug, who do things bigvura, do things with self-control, with discipline, responsibility. Fortunate is you, a country who has this kind of leadership. But if you take a quick look at many countries in the world, you don't have that, unfortunately. Right? You don't have that. You have, unfortunately, leadership all over the world who's not as responsible, who's more interested in keeping their seat for the next election. But not that dedicated. Very few leaders are really truly dedicated. Okay, one more pasuk. Now, after we've spoken about the fool, now we switch gears a little bit and go back to another favorite character of Shlomo Melech, and he tends to speak, I think, more about it in Mishlei than he does in Kohelet. But a very, very important idea, extremely significant, and he mentions it here too. Ba'atzaltaim yimacha mekare. We're talking about the lazy. Because of laziness, the roof, I'm going to translate it literally, and then I'll explain it. Because of laziness, the roof begins to fall apart. Ubeshiflut yadayim yidlof habayit. And because of laziness, shiflut yadayim also means because of lack of action, the house will begin to leak. What is he saying in simple words? People who put off repairing small repairs, eventually the small repairs that were not done will end up costing them more because the house will soon fall apart. You have a small, take care of it, otherwise it becomes a big leak. And once you have a big leak, the water comes in, it destroys even more. So look what he says, because of laziness, a house is sometimes left in disrepair and it becomes dilapidated. It begins to leak and so forth. However, this is not only talking about a house, let's talk about anything. People who are lazy, right? They don't take care of themselves. It's also, the body falls apart. People who are lazy and they don't take care of their marriage falls apart. Laziness is a terrible, terrible midah. You got to do something, you do it. Don't leave it even for tomorrow. If it's very, very important, take care of it. Otherwise, the laziness will destroy you. Now, when this happens with Torah, it's even more dangerous. If a person is lazy and does not want to learn Torah because of laziness, this will cause him a rifyon. This will cause him to become weaker and weaker in his attachment to the Torah, to the mitzvot. It will therefore cause him to litrashel, to be negligent, and to do worse things eventually. The laziness can therefore lead to all kinds of terrible consequences, especially when we talk about laziness of learning Torah. We were talking about somebody who was not interested in learning. Now we're talking about someone who is learned, is capable, but he's lazy. He doesn't want to go to class. He'd rather sit back and smoke and drink or watch the Super Bowl. Does he really like the Super Bowl? No, it's not because he's a fan, but he's lazy. So he wants to do something that's easy. What is a lazy man? A lazy man is one that prefers to do that which is easy. Not that he's not interested in doing anything. You know, he'd rather do that which is easy. That's lazy. So if it's laziness of Torah, it's a chaval meod. What a big loss to him. Because in the end, just like the house will develop leaks, he too will develop leaks in a different sense. That all the good values that he may have acquired at one time, he will lose. Shiflut yadayim can also mean that if you give the work, the repair work, to people who don't know how to repair, you'll end up having to repair their work too. In other words, don't give the job to somebody who does not know how to do it. You know, there's a saying in Arabic, "Ati khubzak lil khubaz." Give your bread to the baker, even if he eats half of it. In other words, give the work to the professionals who know how to do it right, and don't do it yourself. So this is really also continuation to the ministers that we were talking about before. Ministers may not be drunk. They may be okay. But if they're lazy, it's the same kind of a problem. They won't get any work done. The government will not function properly if you have lazy people. And everything will fall apart. One more interpretation of this pasuk is that we're talking about not the roof falling apart, but the roof cover is referring to Hashem not providing us with all the shefa that He would ordinarily give us. The flow that comes down from above is diminished, chas v'shalom, God forbid, if the Jewish people do not learn Torah. One of the flows that is diminished is rain. Israel should have more rain. The Kohelet is very, very low. Oh, we have to import water from Turkey. That's what they always talk about. They don't realize that the main problem has nothing to do with being a Mediterranean country where there's not that much rain. It has to do with the fact that, unfortunately, there's some problems that is causing that flow from above to be diminished. And rain is very important. Rain is our sustenance, it's our life. So it's connected to Torah. If the Torah is diminished, that can have an effect on another very important asset that we have, and that's rain. I mean, when it diminishes, it really affects us in every way. And last but not least, this laziness that he's talking about over here is also a spiritual form of laziness, which is also terrible. There are people who know the truth. They have to work on themselves. They have to correct some mistakes. They have to say, I'm sorry to others for having insulted them. They have to correct a character deficient, with some character problem that they have. I call this all spiritual. Okay? It's not the house. It's not something physical. It's something spiritual. So you have people who are spiritually lazy. They don't want to do things that are spiritual because of laziness. And how do they deal with that? With excuses. Because we're talking about somebody who knows, not somebody who doesn't know. People who know that they have a problem and they still don't want to deal with it properly. Even though they come up with excuses, the commentaries explain over here, all of these excuses that the lazy person will come up with are not true excuses. If a person is lazy, don't believe any of his excuses. The excuses are just a way of justifying what he prefers to do, and that is to enjoy himself, to take it easy. So in order to be able to enjoy himself and take it easy, which is what he prefers to do, he comes up with all kinds of excuses to justify it. So the reality is that many, many times when people give an excuse or an explanation for something, it's not done mishikul dat, it's not done with logic and common sense. The justification or the excuse is all it is an excuse, an amatla. In other words, just to try to justify their laziness, their behavior, where they would rather enjoy themselves resting than having to work hard for whatever it is that they need to work for. In this case, since we're talking about a spiritual issue, whether it's character, whether it's shalom bayit, whether it's learning Torah, whatever it is, that is a very, very, very big issue, because if a person is lazy in that area, he will never grow. He will never grow, he will never progress, he will never become a better person, he will never be a better father, a better husband, a better friend, a better Eved Elokim, a better servant of God, because of this laziness. It requires obviously effort to correct. People who have this tendency need help, and if they're a little bit smart, they will realize and admit it and accept the help that they're going to get from people. Those that are lazy don't admit it and don't accept help. I don't want to use those words. I rarely do, but they're a lost case. In quotes. Is there anything called a lost case? Yes, there are some people who are lost cases. And that is the people who don't want to hear any criticism, don't want to get any help. They think they're right, and if you point out a problem, they will justify it in all kinds of ways. And one of those people that may be very close to that is one who is spiritually lazy. Spiritually lazy means he will have a hard time getting himself to go to the rabbi, get himself to go to class. And of course, that is something that you have to be very, very careful with. If that problem is ever comes up, I'm not telling you to give up. Obviously, this requires consultation with somebody, and you have to do your best to help these people, because you never know. It may work It may not work the first time, but it may work the second or third or fourth or fifth time. So never give up. Of course, approach it with caution, with proper guidance from those who are specialists and experts in the area of convincing people. And there are all kinds of issues. There are all kinds of problems. I'm talking in general terms right now. There are times that people are not necessarily against something, completely against. They don't believe in it. They're simply lazy. And as a result of the laziness, they're not going to end up doing it. And if it's spirituality, becoming a better person, a more observant person, they're going to be missing out a lot. And therefore, we have to do whatever we can to make it easy for them. If they won't come, then bring the class to them. Bring them the CD. Show them the internet. Somehow, you have to be smart. Get it to them in whatever way you can. And B'ezrat Hashem, hopefully, our efforts will bear fruit. Thank you.
Sakura.
That's